Hi everybody, this is Dr. Nigro with the Chem Calculations Screencast. This screencast is going to cover the skills required to name and write formulas of hydrates. All right, I've done earlier screencasts that looked at ionic compounds and covalent compounds. If you have not looked at those, you need to do that first because we need to understand the rules for ionic compound naming and covalent prefixes before we can work with hydrates. So again, if you haven't looked at those videos and you don't understand those naming conventions, please go back and do that first, or this is going to be very confusing. All right. So let's talk about first how to ID a hydrate. All right. So what is a hydrate? A hydrate is an ionic compound that has water molecules associated with the ions in their crystalline form. Okay, so these water molecules, sometimes they can be covalently interacting with the ions, but usually it's more of an electrostatic interaction. The water molecule is very polar, and because of that, the positive ends of the water molecule can interact with the anion, and the negative parts of the water molecule can interact with the cation. And so when the ionic compound is in its solid crystalline state, there can be holes in that crystal, and these water molecules can sit inside of those holes. Um, these hydrates actually have physical properties that are slightly different from what's called the anhydrous version of that ionic compound. And these water molecules can be removed from the crystal just by heating the crystal above 100 degrees Celsius because the water molecules will evaporate. And when in their gaseous state, all right, they will leave the crystal. All right. So those water molecules, while parts of the molecule can be removed through a physical change. All right. Now, when we talk about naming and writing formulas, we're going to be using a blend of ionic and covalent rules. All right. It's going to be mostly ionic rules because really the only thing we're using from the covalent side is the prefixes to indicate the number of waters. All right. So you could have the formula. All right. And that formula is going to have a compound, a dot, a number, and then H2O. All right. This portion is the ionic compound formula. All right, and this is the number of H2O molecules that are associated within that crystal. All right, and this dot stands for associated with. All right, we can also be given the name. All right, and the name will be something, something hydrate. All right, and this first part will be the ionic compound name. And this second part will be a prefix. And these will be our covalent prefixes to indicate number of H2O molecules. And then this word hydrate is standing in for H2O in our formula. All right, you'll note there's no dot here, it's just a name. All right, but this is what a hydrate's formula and or name is going to look like. So if you see dot H2O, it's a hydrate. Right? If you have a name and it ends in the word hydrate, it's a hydrate. Okay. The harder part is the ionic part. But again, if you've been practicing and you know those rules, then these are pretty easy to name. All right. So let's try a couple. All right. So we're going to go first from a name to a formula. All right. So we're going to start with the ionic part, barium chloride. All right. So I know barium's in group 2, so it's +2. Chlorine's in group 17, makes it -1. Cross those charges. All right, so we're going to get BaCl2 for our ionic portion. Dot is associated with di, so 2, and then hydrate, H2Os. So barium chloride dihydrate is BaCl2 dot 2H2Os. So it's a barium chloride crystal with 2 waters associated per BaCl2 formula unit. All right, now let's try it the other way. We're going to go from the formula to the name. So we start with this Na2SO4. So I reverse my crisscross, and I see that sodium is +1 and SO4 is -2. I know sodium's in group 1, it is +1, so this has not been simplified, so that formula is fine. So I just write sodium, and that is sulfate. I'm just putting it on 2 lines to save myself some room. Dot, oh, no dot, what am I doing? No dot. All right, then I look at my second portion, 10 is deca, and then H2O is hydrate, and that's one word, decahydrate. So this is sodium sulfate decahydrate. All right, here we have another name. All right, so we're going to start here. Iron with a 3 Roman numeral tells me this is Fe plus 3. Phosphate is PO4 minus 3. So when I cross those charges, I'm going to get Fe3 PO4 3, but I can simplify that to one of each, FePO4. That will also be neutral, +3, -3. All right, so that is my ionic portion. Dot tetra is going to be 4, and then hydrate H2O. So this is FePO4 dot 4H2O. So there are 4 water molecules associated with 1 formula unit of iron 3 phosphate. All right, SnCl4. All right, start by reversing my crisscross. So Sn must be +4 here. Cl is -1. All right, and if I look at chloride, it is in fact -1, so this formula is fine. So 10,4 chloride is the name of the ionic compound. All right, I have a 5 here, so that's going to be penta, and then hydrate. All right, the other option here is instead of using 10,4, I could say stanic. All right, that is the ick version of stanit. So that is the higher charge of the 2 options. Chloride dot pentahydrate. All right, next we have zinc sulfate heptahydrate. So zinc is +2, sulfate is -2. Across our charges, we'll have zinc 2, SO4 2, but that can be simplified to zinc ZnSO4 dot hepta is 7, and then hydrate is H2O. So ZnSO4 dot 7 H2O. And then last one, MgCl2, reverse the crisscross. Mg is +2, Cl is -1. That is in fact the correct charges for both of those, so no simplification has happened. So we just name it. Magnesium chloride, and then 6 tells me hexa, and then hydrate. All right, again, you can see it's a blending of the naming conventions for ionic compounds with the use of the prefixes from the covalent complex. All right, you have to be able to name ionic compounds or write formulas from names, just like you do with just plain ionic compounds. If you can't do that, you will miss the hydrates as well. All right, so if you need additional support there, please go back and look at the ionic naming screencast and then come back and try this one again. Okay?